She loved him, so she changed his food. He rose. He drifted. And she had to decide, take the magic back, or lose him forever. Before we get into the story, please subscribe to this channel because you mean the world to us. Now let's get back. Every morning, she packed his lunch, folded the napkin just so, and kissed his cheek before the door closed. It was ordinary, comfortable, the kind of ritual that softened the sharp edges of days. He used to rush out half awake, coffee slushing, mind already at work. This week, though, he lingered. He smiled longer. He hummed. By Friday, he whistled. At dinner he talked more, hands animated, eyes bright. The food, he said, tasted magical. He laughed when he said it, as if the word embarrassed him, but he said it again the next night, and the next. At the office, his voice carried. Ideas landed. People listened. He came home with stories about meetings that ended early and jokes that landed clean. On Thursday, he set his briefcase down and told her he'd been noticed. On Friday, he told her he'd been promoted. She listened, pleased and quiet, stirring a pot, tasting, adjusting salt. When his colleagues teased him over the phone, "What are you eating, man?" she smiled at the counter where the light was warm and the air smelled of supper. He looked younger. He slept less. He woke before the alarm and kissed her back with a certainty that surprised them both. The house felt unchanged, yet not. Mornings seemed lighter, afternoons shorter. He called her from work to say he felt unstoppable, like something had clicked. She said she was happy for him. She was. But there was a carefulness in her happiness, a pause she did not share. She noticed how he stood straighter, how strangers returned his smile, how even the barista leaned in when he spoke. On Wednesday evening, he came home flushed with praise and asked for seconds. On Thursday, he asked for thirds. He told her the meals filled him with warmth, with focus, with a strange ease he couldn't name. She watched him eat, watched the confidence settle into him like a tailored jacket. She told herself it was rest, routine, love. By Sunday, the jokes were sharper, the laughter louder. He planned ahead, volunteered, spoke first. The world seemed to open for him, and he stepped through without hesitation. She set the table and poured the water and felt something flicker beneath her calm, not fear, not pride, but awareness. Every morning, she packed his lunch. The same routine. The same kiss. Yet as he closed the door, buoyant and bright, she remained in the quiet kitchen, hands still, smile held. No one knew that the magic wasn't just love. It was something else. He thanked her more than usual, noticing small things, the way she listened, the way the meal waited. She nodded, accepting praise without comment. Inside, she measured days by changes she could feel but not name, choosing steadiness over celebration. The rhythm of care continued, simple and deliberate, and she held to it, believing routine could contain joy without letting it spill or disappear. It felt sufficient, complete, and worthy of the life they shared. She hadn't gone looking for it. The cookbook fell open on its own, spine cracked, pages soft with age. It had belonged to her grandmother, then her mother, then her, moving through kitchens like a quiet witness. As she wiped a smudge of flour from the margin, a folded slip slid out and landed by her hand. The paper was thin, the handwriting slanted and patient, as if written slowly to be remembered. It wasn't a spell. It read like a recipe, plain and modest. A pinch of this herb, a leaf of that. Stir while thinking kindly. Cook without anger. Serve warm. At the bottom, a line was underlined twice, intention matters more than measure. She smiled at the old-fashioned phrasing and nearly tossed it away. That night, she tried it as a joke. She told herself it was nostalgia, nothing more. She followed the steps loosely, letting the idea of care guide her hands. She breathed slower. She paid attention. She imagined the meal landing gently in him, easing him. When she served it, she said nothing. He took the first bite and paused. He laughed, surprised, and said it tasted brighter. He ate quickly, then sat back, eyes clear, shoulders loose. Later, he stayed up reading, then woke early, humming. She watched without comment. The next day he called at lunch, voice quick, words stacking over each other. He said he felt sharp, focused, like a fog had lifted. She listened, heart steady, and said she was glad. That evening she used the note again, still half smiling at herself, still certain it was harmless. The pattern held. Each meal brought ease. Each day brought momentum. He was generous with praise, patient in traffic, fearless in meetings. People noticed. He noticed too, standing taller, trusting his instincts. She felt pride bloom alongside something quieter, a sense of responsibility she didn't fully accept. She read the slip again, tracing the ink with her finger. It spoke of women cooking through hard years, of feeding families with hope when hope was thin. No promises, no warnings. Just a belief that care could change the taste of days. She folded it neatly and tucked it back where it had been. In the kitchen, she kept the ritual small. No candles, no whispers. Just attention. Just intention. She told herself belief was powerful because people were. She told herself nothing had been altered that couldn't be explained. Yet when he kissed her that night, lingering uncertain, she felt the shift settle like a held note finally resolving. She didn't know whether to name it coincidence or charm. She only knew that something had begun, quietly, and it was working. She kept cooking with care, neither daring nor denying the idea. Days passed smoothly, almost kindly, and she allowed the moment to exist without questions. If meaning lived there, it lived gently, asking nothing, changing nothing she could not already recognize in herself. It felt ordinary, steady, and quietly sufficient for now. At first, the attention amused him. Compliments slid off his shoulders like rain, harmless and brief. He told her about coworkers lingering by his desk, about managers asking his opinion twice. She laughed with him, proud, telling herself success often changed the temperature of a room. But soon the stories shifted. Names repeated. Text arrived late. He spoke of dinners that ran long, of drinks he hadn't planned on having. He still smiled at her, still kissed her hello, but his eyes seemed elsewhere, measuring a world newly eager to receive him. At restaurants, servers leaned closer. At parties, conversations gathered around him without effort. She watched from a step back, hands folded, noticing how easily he moved through admiration. The ease unsettled her. One evening, a colleague called while they were clearing dishes. A woman's laugh carried through the phone, warm and familiar. He stepped into the other room, lowering his voice. When he returned, he was distracted, apologetic without explaining why. She nodded, accepting silence the way she always had, but something tightened. She cooked with care, though her attention wavered. She followed the note less precisely, unsure whether she wanted the same results. He ate and praised, but his thanks felt lighter, more habitual. He left early and returned late, energized but distant, like someone living a fuller life just beyond reach. At work, he thrived. At home, he drifted. He spoke of plans that didn't include her, of opportunities that demanded flexibility. She listened, offering encouragement she wasn't sure she felt. The charm, if it existed, had stretched him outward, pulling him into rooms where she was no longer present. One night, she asked if he was happy. He paused, surprised by the question, then said of course. He said everything was going well. He said she worried too much. The words were gentle, but the dismissal landed hard. She realized she had become a place of return rather than arrival. She reread the slip of paper, seeing it differently now. Care could open doors. Intention could amplify desire. What it didn't promise was direction. She wondered if she had fed confidence without anchoring it, brightness without boundaries. The next days were careful. She watched him choose admiration over conversation, momentum over stillness. She wondered if the change had revealed something already there or shaped something new. Either way, she felt responsible. Charm was sweet, she thought, but sweetness spoiled when left unchecked. She loved him, still. That hadn't changed. But love now shared space with doubt, and doubt demanded an answer. In the quiet kitchen, she decided she would stop. Whatever had been added, she would take away. Not out of fear, but out of faith that what was real would remain. She finished cooking, served the meal, and watched him eat, trying to see the man she married in the glow of the man he had become. She stopped without ceremony. No announcement, no confession. The folded slip stayed hidden between pages, untouched. In the kitchen, she cooked as she always had before, steady and familiar, letting her mind wander where it wished instead of holding it in place. The meals were good, honest, unremarkable. She waited. The change was not immediate. The first evening he ate quietly, distracted, checking his phone. The second, he frowned, added salt, and said nothing. By the third night, he sighed as he sat down, shoulders heavy, movement slower. He complained about work, about deadlines piling up, about feeling tired again. She listened, nodding, resisting the urge to explain anything. Days passed. His mornings grew rushed. He forgot his lunch once, then twice. The humming disappeared. At night he fell asleep on the couch, worn thin by effort that no longer carried him. She felt relief and guilt in equal measure, unsure which emotion deserved more space. One evening, he pushed his plate away halfway through. "Did you change something?" he asked, not accusing, just curious. She met his eyes and said no. The truth, she told herself, could be simple. Later that week, he came home later than usual but without the buoyancy she'd grown used to. He sat at the table longer, picking at his food, then finally looked up at her, really looked, as if noticing her again after a long absence. "I miss your food," he said. He hesitated, then added, quieter, "I miss whatever you used to put in it." Her hands stilled. The words landed heavier than she expected. Not praise, not complaint, but longing. She sat across from him, heart steady, and said nothing. He filled the silence himself, talking about how everything felt harder lately, how the confidence slipped, how he couldn't focus the same way. He said it without blame, almost with embarrassment. She wondered then if she had misjudged the cause entirely. Maybe nothing had been added except her attention. Maybe nothing had been taken away except belief. Still, she felt certain something real had shifted, something he had grown used to carrying inside him. That night, she lay awake, thinking of the note, of the woman before her who had cooked through uncertainty, offering what they could not name. She realized undoing was not reversal. It was choice. She had chosen simplicity, and simplicity had consequences. The next day, she cooked slowly, deliberately, without charm and without avoidance. She spoke to him while she walked, small conversation, shared memories. He joined her, chopping vegetables, laughing once at a story he'd heard before. The distance eased, not erased, but softened. As they ate, he relaxed, the tension loosening from his face. He thanked her, not for the food, but for the evening. She accepted the thanks, feeling steadier. Whatever had been undone, whatever remained, they were still here, sharing a table, choosing each other in quieter ways. She planned the last meal without ceremony, the way she used to before meaning crept into every motion. No folded paper. No careful thoughts held too tightly. She cooked with honesty, letting her mind rest where it wished, letting her hands remember their own rhythm. The food was simple, familiar, shaped by years rather than intention. She set the table for two and waited. He came home tired, jacket loosened, eyes dull with the day. He kissed her forehead, brief but present, and sat without speaking. They ate in silence at first, the kind that isn't empty but cautious, as if both were listening for something. Halfway through the meal, he slowed. He looked at his plate, then at her, and something softened. He smiled, small and real, not the bright practice smile she had watched strangers draw from him. "This," he said, almost to himself, "this is the magic I missed." She exhaled, the tension she hadn't named easing from her shoulders. He talked then, not about work or plans or people who admired him, but about the way the house felt calmer lately, how he'd been thinking more, noticing when he rushed through things. He admitted the confidence had felt good, but also loud, like a room with too many voices. He said he didn't want to feel impressive all the time. He wanted to feel grounded. She listened, meeting him where he was, not correcting, not confessing. When he finished, she told him she'd missed him too, even when he'd been right there. He reached for her hand, holding it longer than he had in weeks. After dinner, he helped clear the table. They moved easily, bumping into each other, laughing once at nothing important. It felt like returning to a pace they both recognized. Later, when he went to shower, she stood alone in the kitchen and opened the old cookbook. She found the folded slip and smoothed it flat. At the bottom, in lighter ink she hadn't noticed before, was a final line, written smaller, almost hidden: "Charm fades, but love cooks forever." She folded the paper once more and slipped it back into the book, closing it gently. There was no decision to make. She already knew. When he returned, he wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. He thanked her again, this time for staying, for noticing when things shifted. She leaned into him, feeling the familiar weight, the familiar warmth. The days that followed were quieter. He worked steadily, without the rush to impress. She cooked as she always had, sometimes attentive, sometimes distracted, always sincere. Nothing glowed unnaturally. Nothing dulled. If there had ever been magic, it no longer mattered. What remained was enough. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment and share. See you in the next story.